What's up, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching? Thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. We continue on with the spooky season, the scary stuff. That's what this month is all about, after all. Why wouldn't we focus on it? Especially when I've got two guys like this to go over all the scary stuff with me. The first one being my hetero life mate, Jeremy. What's up, brother?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything. It's a silent film. I don't know. I should have just muted myself and just started talking. Holy crap. I mean, you want to talk about a hell of a throwback. There's a reason why this movie and why this particular character is still around pretty heavily in pop culture and still relevant 101 years later. So, yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting breakdown. I mean, you know, Tex was talking about it the other day. How do we break down a silent film? Well, we're going to figure that out here in about 2 minutes. And, of course, our other horror aficionado, the shape from Lone Star State, my man Tex. What's up, brother?
You know, I just want it noted and dictated that my dedication to the work I put in, because my Rangers are playing for the pennant right now, and I'm here talking to y'all. So I just want it known I should get extra credit for being here tonight. So thank you. That's all.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, if the Giants were playing right now, I'd have the Giants on one of these screens, and then they would the screen.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. No. I am monitoring the game. I'm just saying, my dedication needs to be noted. That's all I'm saying. So, what's up, everybody? Happy Halloween. What's up?
Yeah, and Tex and I were talking. I am all behind the Texas Rangers this Major League Baseball playoff season, because they've got my man Bruce Bochy, who I am so thankful that he helped my team, the San Francisco Giants, win 3 World Series back in the early 2010s. So hopefully Boch gets another ring. He's a Hall of Fame manager.
Go and take it, baby. Go and take it. I can feel the power flowing through me. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm all Rangers in the playoffs this year, but don't tell my girlfriend, because she was born near Houston and she's an Astros fan. Shh, don't say anything.
Ooh, you cheaters. You nasty bunch of villains.
I like Altuve. Past that, I just don't really care. But, let's get right into this, though. I mean, the movie we're talking about tonight is, if you can't tell by the title, is Nosferatu, or also known as Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. It's a 1922 silent German expressionist horror film directed by F.W. Murnau and starring Max Schreck as Count Orlok, a vampire who preys on the wife of his estate agent and brings the plague to their town. Nosferatu was produced by Prana Films and is an unauthorized and unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. Various names and other details were changed from the novel, including Count Dracula being renamed to Count Orlok. Although those changes are often represented as a defense against copyright infringement, the original German intertitles acknowledge Dracula as the source. Film historian David Klatt states in his commentary track that since the film was a low-budget film made by Germans for German audiences, setting it in Germany with German-named characters makes the story more tangible and immediate for German-speaking viewers. The film has received overwhelmingly positive reviews on review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. The film holds an approval rating of 97% based on 63 reviews, with an average rating of 9.05 out of 10, with the website's critical consensus reading, quote, "One of the silent era's most influential masterpieces, Nosferatu's eerie gothic feel and a chilling performance from Max Schreck as the vampire set the template for the horror films that followed." It was reported in September of 2022 that Robert Edgar's remake would be distributed by Focus Features, with Bill Skarsgård set to star as Orlok and Lily Rose Depp as Ellen Hooter. The film wrapped principal photography on May 19th of 2023, so we can look forward to seeing that one. We'll talk about that one later on as well. But I don't know. I'll go to you first, Tex. Give us some quick initial thoughts before we start going into the deep dive on this one.
Yeah, this is... I mean, what can you say about a silent film? I love that line because it's so ironic. You know, you were going to talk about something with no speaking, but this is an iconic film. Obviously, it started the monster craze that we would get into the 30s with Universal and everything else. I mean, this film and character still has cultural relevance due to even people like Rob Zombie. He's got clips of Nosferatu in different music videos and stuff. There's been, this character, for being 101 years old, it never went away. It's just, it may have faded into the background for a while, but it's such an iconic design and everything else that it's just, it's visually striking. You can't look away. And it's, you know, it's not one I revisit regular, but it was fun to go back and watch, you know. So it's a decent film.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? What are some of your quick thoughts on Nosferatu?
Yeah, you know what? It's always impressed me. Like I said, I'm someone who likes, you know, special effects and stuff in movies. So seeing something even from, you know, the early 20s, seeing how they still managed to shoot this and, you know, even light it, and like you said, it's got this very creepy, dark, gothic feel, and it's kind of cool seeing how it all got put together. And there's some stuff where I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is kind of not necessarily new, but newish ground that we're kind of treading here with making motion pictures. So I always appreciate, you know, something like this. And again, there's a reason why this has stuck around all this time. That's just never ceases to amaze me. It's you know, the thing that I know we always see is either the picture after the thumbnail of him standing in the door. There's a lot of creepy images in this thing, which, I mean, for its time, yeah, there's a reason why it was banned in a few countries. But, you know, you can't beat the iconic shot of him like creeping up the stairs in the shadow, and like the use of the shadows too. You know what I mean? It's
I got that one. Cool. I got that shot. You know, I got that shot.
I'd be really disappointed if you didn't. Yeah, that's, I mean, how do you not? That's like iconic, just like classic horror right there. I love it.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's a reminder that, you know, we talk a lot about how movies of the 50s and 60s have kind of impacted what we watch today, how movies from the 70s and 80s, how every era of filmmaking has kind of led into where we are today. We forgot that it really does go back to these silent films before talkies, before sound, when it was all visual. I mean, I got to thinking about it last night as I was watching this with my girlfriend, and I was just like, they're basically just put a book on camera. It's kind of the strangest thing, because you see everything happen, and then the descriptive cards come up saying he's doing this or what the character was trying to say. It's kind of like an audiobook, but it's a visual audiobook, if it makes any sense. It's a video book. It's very strange the way that it kind of worked out, but it's such an interesting way to watch a movie. It really makes you focus on the visuals, and then you focus on the dialogue kind of separately, because it was popping up on you know, in different on a screen, and it's just a weird way to watch a movie, but it's oddly engrossing. It's a way that, you know, in modern times that we're not used to doing it. So it's a different way of seeing this entire film, seeing this product. So, and on top of that, you've got one of the greatest looking monsters of all time. I mean, it's so simple, you know, Jeremy with the ears and the eyes. It's like, with the right lighting, that could look terrifying to somebody, especially back in 1922, when I don't even think horror was a genre yet. I just think movies, I don't even think they had genres of movies at all. I just think everything was a movie, and you didn't really know what good horror was back then. But yeah, just great performance by Max Schreck. A really interesting way to watch a movie. But you know, let's get into the breakdown real quick, and I'll start with you, Jeremy. Let's talk about the basic plot. What ends up happening is this guy, or Max Schreck's character, Nosferatu, Count Orlok, ends up sending a letter to this weird little guy that you see on screen right now, who is the main protagonist's boss, saying that I want to buy some property there, and so on and so on. So he sends his guy, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Renfield.
Hooter. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but sends him to go talk to Count Orlok to try to seal the deal. And it ends, and that's when Hooter. That's when Hooter ends up running into obviously all the weirdos that kind of exist in Orlok's castle, and eventually Orlok himself. And it kind of starts this whole thing of, you know, Orlok trying to get there to get to his wife so that he can drink her blood, and he's going to bring plague and all that. Jeremy, what do you think of the plot of the movie overall?
And I mean, like you said, it's not like again, we're where I said rather we're treading new ground here. But as you said, there's not really any. You just kind of make art. You just make movies, you know. So, and I wasn't around in 1922, but I'm trying to imagine what kind of mindset an audience would see this and think holy crap, you got this creepy guy who's now gonna bring death and plague amongst this town, and who likes to bite on people's necks, and he can disappear and do all kinds of creepy shit. So, again, it's not like like you said about like with books or even anything written. It's not like something like that hasn't been done, but now you have this new medium of being able to, essentially show people and seeing it. This is part where that starts to come into effect of well, is the book better or is the movie better? It's I don't really care. Just enjoy either one. You know what I mean? It's a different way to experience, a story. So it's kind of ominous. Even though I like to make jokes, and when they're got a whole town of people with coffins, I'm just bring out your dead, bring out your dead, yeah, for a plot such as it is, man, there's a lot going on here. You got death and destruction, and this guy's trying to nibble on this dude's his wife's neck. He even already got him the first day. Rookie mistake, dude. You got bit the first day. Come on, man, you're dropping the ball.
Well, nobody knew anything about vampires back then, so we have 100 years of knowledge and about 1 million other movies to fall back on. But those guys, they didn't know anything. But I don't know, Tex, what about you? Did the plot of the movie work for you?
Well, the plot is basically Dracula with just enough changes so maybe they wouldn't get sued, but they did in the end of it either way. So yeah, obviously the plot works because it created a whole subgenre within horror of vampires that came from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Obviously they changed. You don't see him turn into a bat or mist or a wolf or anything. He doesn't turn other people into vampires. So, is he Orlok? So some of the prints at the end of the credits say Dracula and Renfield, so depending on which version you're watching, you'll get a different cut of the film. There's 100 different cuts of this movie, by the way. Like I said, this is the base plate of a genre right here. Obviously the book came out years before, but this film, came before, I would say probably the best and most famous Dracula for Universal, but the plot works. You can't say it doesn't when it's been done 1,000 times,
Well, you got to remember, it hadn't been done 1,000 times in 1922. It had been done maybe once.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is history proves that this plot works because this plot was so well exposed and took that it's carried on all this time. And, now we've got 1,000 different versions of Dracula. But the one part of this that I find the most interesting plot wise is probably the plague part that he brings. Because you didn't see that version of plague. When they would talk about plague with really any other Dracula, it would be the plague of vampires that he has created within the city. But within this one, since he doesn't turn people just die. They die from the plague that he brings. So I do like that differential between him and the other vampires. But that's probably my favorite part of anything plot-wise with this film.
Yeah, I thought the plot was interesting, and they do something that they still do in a lot of movies and TV shows today, is they made it relevant to what was happening in the world at the time, specifically the plague. Mm-hmm. Like I said, also there was not really any horror back then, so it was such a. At least. I don't know if they had, like I said, I don't know if they had named the genre horror yet, but scary stuff was not a it was oddly enough, it was when I read it wasn't really. I don't want to say socially acceptable because I think that's a bit strong, but it was not thought of as one of the things that a decent person would go see.
Right.
They would. Why would you go watch this movie where Michael Myers is hacking up teenage girls with their babysitting when you could go watch something, whatever about some girl getting out of the big city or whatever movies they were making back then.
I mean,
so I thought it was interesting that they did that. Even back then, they were trying to fold what was happening in real life into their movie. Also, I don't know how many. Again, this was very early Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood itself had only been going for a matter of about 15 or 20 years. So, and this being a German film didn't even have the support of Hollywood. But the visuals, the photography is pretty striking, even by today's standards. I mean, the way some shots were set up and framed, I was looking at them and I'm like, wow, that's pretty damn good cinematography. That's Oscar level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole, we talked about it, like the whole shot of, the shadow on the staircase. That's a great use of lighting. And I couldn't find a good picture of it, but I mean that weird gif of a scene where he's loading those caskets full of dirt up, and then he gets the casket, sits on top, and he goes and like lays down in it, and then the lid just kind of
just goes
moves over and covers it up,
Yeah.
and then they right away so he can go off. I was just like, stuff like that. It was such great cinematography, such great shot framing. I mean, so many movies today fail at that. It's like, I was just like, wow, that's some great filmmaking.
That's what I'm saying. It blows my mind thinking about like, how did you do this? That's what's crazy about it to me. I'm like, I've seen this movie before, but I'm like, it's wild that even then they were still figuring stuff out like that. Like I said, with that one transition with the woman who like in camera and in frame, like her face all of a sudden just changes to this like crazy old lady. I was like, it was just color filters. They switched over the camera and they had different makeup on her so that when they flip that filter over, then all of a sudden you see the other half of the makeup and it makes her look like freaky. I'm like, who thinks of that? Like, that's insane. That blew my mind today if you told me something like that. I'm like, what?
Back when all they could do was like screw around with the film to get like weird effects.
Like there was that one like shot that was like
all kinds of shit.
That one shot that was like a negative shot, like when he first gets there and he's riding on the carriage. And I was like, I don't know if that was an accident or on purpose, but I'm like, it still gives more to that eerie feeling. I'm like, why is that shot like that? Is it supposed to make him look, more ghostly? Is it like him kind of crossing the threshold from, where he got dropped off to getting to the where Count Orloff is? I'm like, Orlok? I'm like, I don't know why, but it works.
Yeah, I thought it was as I was watching it, I thought it was a very Tarantino kind of shot. It would seem like one of those shots that was thrown in there to kind of get you off balance, because that's the only shot like that in the entire movie. You go through the movie up to that point, just regular black and white, seeing what the kind of movie you'd expect to see. And then it kind of like assaults your senses a little bit to have everything in that photo negative. And then it just kind of cuts back. So it throws you off a lot. I mean, even now, I can't imagine what it did to people back in 1923 or 22 before they had seen some of the crazy shit that we've seen on movies and television. but yeah, it is kind of an assault to the senses a little bit. It really throws you off a lot. Yeah, I agree. That was a pretty cool shot. Mm-hmm. But I mean, let's talk about the characters. I mean, obviously the one who drives this is Max Schreck as Count Orlok. I do like the characters overall. Tex, what did you think of the characters and stuff in this movie?
Well, see, this is where you can't, this isn't like any other film where you can say, oh, well, I liked what this character did, how they played off, blah, blah, blah. So much of this is played within your own head. They give you the visual of what the character is doing. You get to see what it looks like, but you get to fill in the gaps a lot here. Obviously, Max Schreck is the meat and potatoes here. He's I liked his version of Renfield. I liked I can't remember what they renamed him to in that. Orlok, Dracula, whatever you want to go with. He's so expressive, like even with the heavy eyebrows that look like caterpillars, like pointed, very mischievously out like this and everything else. he's so expressive in his face the way that they do it in this film. This is an art house Dracula movie, and the way that they present the character, when he's on, when he's in the boat or when he's loading the caskets or whatever, there's so many incredible things that they do with him that way that it's just, you really have to fill in the gaps for yourself. And that's one thing I like about this film, but this is not a movie you put on and just kind of nod off. You have to pay attention because they're not going to make it easy for you. We're watching a different kind of film here. You know what I mean? But Max Schreck is incredible in this film. It's just, the guys that, I'm trying to think of the word here, how the guys played the old monsters, from Frankenstein's monster to Count Orlok to the Mummy to whatever. These guys originated this. It's not like they said, oh, well, okay, I saw the original. I kind of know what to do here. They were the standard bearers of this. And the things that they made have lasted 100 years. Like, I can't think of anything new that we've done this generation is going to be around in 100 years. Of course, we won't be allowed to find out, but, it's just, it's very interesting what Max Schreck was able to do with this role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Jeremy, how about, I already talked to Jeremy, but yeah, for me, obviously, what's interesting to me about this movie is that it focuses a lot on some of the secondary characters, but it's like Max Schreck does steal this entire movie despite having kind of limited screen time. I'll talk about that a little bit in the trivia.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, you kind of do get a little bit of a understanding, not quite an emotional attachment the way that you get in today's films, to the main character and his woman, who's apparently goes by 3 different names depending on which version of the movie you're watching. But you do get kind of attached to these people. So when Orlok comes in, I mean, even the guys in the boat, like that whole scene on the boat, I thought was really interesting. I was like, if this had sound, I don't know if, I mean, it would hit different. I don't know if it would hit the same. I don't know if it would hit better. But I'm just like, this is still kind of a crazy scene, even though I can't hear him, just whacking all these people on the boat and sucking their blood and murdering them. And when he walks into the captain, like right at the last person left is the captain and the first mate. The first mate, obviously, something happens to him. And then you see Orlok coming out of the, I don't know if I got a picture of that or not. Apparently I did not. But then you see Orlok kind of coming out of the hold of the ship. And he's, and the captain's just tying himself to the wheel because he's like, I'm gonna die right here at the wheel of my ship, bro. It's like that scene was even really tense and satisfying in a weird horror way. So yeah, Max Schreck absolutely kills it. I like the good character work for a silent film. I don't get how they painted this girl's face for most of the movie. She looks kind of like a man, but whatever. She's got a bit of a square jaw. I mean,
yeah. We might need a cup check on that one.
Yeah, we need to check her chromosomes. I don't know what they were doing back in 1922 or 1921 when the movie was actually filmed. But yeah, I thought I've seen a couple of different silent films, and I think this one by far exceeds most of them as far as just overall quality is concerned, because I found myself watching them and enjoying the stories, but not necessarily being wrapped up in the visuals the way I got wrapped up in the visuals of this movie. You know what I mean? Maybe it's because it's a horror movie. Maybe because it was just other people living their daily lives in the other movies I've seen. Maybe there was some romantic stuff because the romances were really popular in the silent film era. Some of the actiony stuff, like the Buster Keaton stuff, was fun to watch, but not so much story. Cool visuals, but not so much story. This is one of the few silent films I've seen that has that good balance of both. So I think that's pretty cool. But I mean, let's ask one of the more important questions: is how scary really is this movie? I mean, by today's standards, by 2020 or 1923 standards. I'll go to you first, Tex. How scary is this movie, especially for someone like you, who basically all you watch is horror? You've maybe been a little numb to how scary some of these movies can be.
Oh yeah, I was completely desensitized by like 9. I was done. I had been to the mountaintop, and You weren't going to get me. Which is oddly enough because I didn't find this film until I was like, I don't know, maybe 16, 15, 16 in there somewhere. This film's never scared me. I've seen this film maybe 3 times. To be honest with you, I don't even really think you need to watch this movie 3 times, if I'm being honest. But it's not a scary film. The part of what now, obviously this is silent, and you have to work within the time period that it is. But when you take the sound part out, even if there's not words, but go watch Halloween with the mute button on, like it's not scary. Watch The Exorcist with the mute button on. It's not going to be scary. You need sound in a horror film to kind of drive home that scary point. That's why every great horror franchise has Exorcist has Tubular Bells. John Carpenter created the Halloween theme. Jason has his, Harry Manfredini soundtracks. When you don't have the sounds, you're taking away half of what makes it scary. I don't find this is a horror film, but not a scary one, if I had to say so. Even coming at it from a non-jaded point of view, trying to look at it, I don't think I would be scared of this.
Jeremy, how about you? How scary is this movie, again, to you, someone who does this for a living every weekend during the scary season, someone who just like Tex is very absorbed by the horror, the macabre, the dark stuff in entertainment. How scary is this movie to you?
I mean, to me, like now, like an hour ago when I finished watching it, I mean, it's obviously not scary. I've seen scarier things. I've seen worse things happen. I've seen stranger things happen. Okay. No? Okay. But I mean, like I get what he's saying. It's like to each medium, it's got its effect of, I mean, there's effects, there's, special effects, there's music, there's sound effects. The thing with this is like it has to be scary. It's to somebody being as limited as it is, not being able to have sound. So I mean that's the interesting part. Now, like I said, it's not really scary to me. Like I was wrapped up like in the cinematography as well. It's just like I could have believed like I could have seen this, like someone made like a fan little, like not necessarily found footage, but like could have made this like a little art house film, or seen it even at like a film festival. But it does have its horror elements. It's not there wasn't this whole huge facet of horror like we have now. Like there's many different types. So I guess as a jumping off point, it's got its creepiness to it. Like now I didn't see this either until I was much older, but like kind of jumping forward, maybe what is it, about 10 years or so? Like I saw the original Dracula, right? Like as a kid. Now that actually kind of creeped me out a little bit, because I mean I was a little kid. I didn't really see much of it, and it's a black and white film. I mean, yes, it has sound, but it still kind of creeped me out. And my only other thing that I was going to say about like Max Schreck is from a haunt actor's perspective, I'm like, there's a reason why it's so effective. I'm like, you don't even really have to do a whole lot to still be scary to somebody to be effective. I can stand there, I can just deadpan stare somebody down, and if I commit to that and I don't break, like it's gonna freak someone out. Like I'm gonna be in your head the rest of the fucking night just because I looked at you like this for a few seconds, because you know what I'm gonna do. And that's the thing. I love those shots of like, especially near the end, like when he's sitting there at the bar, just like and his wife's doing whatever the fuck she's doing, and he's just sitting there like doing. I think you get that picture where he's kind of going like this, almost doing some Thriller type shit. Just staring into the camera, is creepy. But I mean, even for someone today who doesn't really watch horror, it's like it may not be scary because again, we've all 100 years later, we've all seen some shit. So maybe back then, no, I don't know. not something somebody's used to, and that's the thing about horror. Like we've been saying before, each little new wave of horror keeps pushing the envelope, and that's what it's about. So,
well, and to kind of add on to that, though, to play off of that, is it technically a horror film? Yes, but when you look at it from today, I couldn't call it, like, if they made this exact film today, this would not be a horror film. You know, I mean, we've talked, you know, how Silence of the Lambs is not a horror film, and there's many, many more horror elements in that than there is this. Yeah. You know, this, I don't, you know, German expressionist art house film, I think is a better term than horror, honestly. But, you know, then you're just arguing semantics of what is what, and everybody has a different definition. And, you know, like I said, if I'm curious to see what the remake looks like, to see if they add more horror element to it, because they've remade this thing a few times over the years. Some of them are better than others. The one from the 70s, the Nosferatu from the 70s, is not bad. Was it 72? I couldn't remember what year it was.
79. No, he's right.
Werner Herzog made that one, I think.
Yeah, that one's not bad, but like I said, if you made this exact film today, this would not be a horror film. You know, because, I mean, definitions change over time, but it is what it is. You know?
That's why I keep asking, why do you guys keep calling Jaws a horror film? Like, that to me does not seem like a horror film. Like I said, it's horrifying, and it's got a fear element to it, but I wouldn't call Jaws. I mean, when I'm watching a whole thing of like, here's Freddy, Jason, Michael, Leatherface, Ghostface, and you're like, Jaws, I'm like, what? It's a fucking shark. I mean, that's not that saying something like Texas Chainsaw couldn't happen, or, you know, it kind of did, or Psycho, rather.
They're going to say Ed Gein. It did happen.
I was like, Ed Gein, it's Psycho and Texas Chainsaw kind of melded. That's what really happened. But I'm saying, like, when you got it's kind of a monster movie, which then I guess you could argue so is Frankenstein, but it's also horror. I don't fucking know. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I was saying. Is I'm like, it's got its elements of scary stuff, but
I don't know.
This definition has now been so broad. There's so many types of horror now, which is cool. I mean, like, you can say here's rock and roll.
I think this could almost
every version of rock and roll. You got metal. You got pop rock. You got fucking. You know what I mean? It branches out.
German. You could almost say this is its own genre in and of itself, like German expressionism, allegorical films. Because, like, I mean, it's obviously playing off of the plague stuff and everything else. That's really the underlying fear and the horror in this film. Count Orlok is just sucking some people dry. The plague is what's killing more people. So maybe allegorical monster movie, I think it'd be a more accurate genre to put it in, but I don't know. That's kind of an interesting debate to go through.
I like the comparison to Silence of the Lambs because it is more of a suspense horror.
It is.
Because if you're just talking about a movie that's scary, calling it horror, I mean, yeah, but there's different ways to scare people. There's the traditional slasher films that Tex loves so much that are horror, the slasher genre of horror. Then there's you have the comedy horror and stuff like that. And then you have the suspense horror, which is what I think Silence of the Lambs falls into that. I think this falls into that. Other movies.
I'd agree with that.
But yeah, so instead of calling it just a straight horror, expressionist, I mean, it is a very artistic kind of film. I mean, even by today's standards, it's much more artistic than it is. It's an artistic, like, independent film. Is kind of what it feels like to watch.
Almost every shot in this movie looks like it's a painting. That's why the art influence is so heavy in this film. And, I mean, there are times when I watch this movie where I forget I'm watching a movie because it looks like old documentary footage of 1920s. It doesn't feel like a movie, but, if you take the vampire scenes out of it, it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like you're watching World War II footage or whatever. It's kind of what it feels like when you watch this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. There are some great artistic shots in this, which is why I like the expressionist horror, the way that they describe it on places like Wikipedia and stuff. But let's ask about this: is where does this rank for you guys? And I'll start with you first, Jeremy. Where does this rank in the Dracula corner of horror movies for the genre? I mean, is this top 5 Dracula movies, even though he's not Dracula if you listen to Morno? But I mean, where does this rank in the Dracula bloodsucker movies for you?
Well, it's better than Twilight.
Twilight doesn't count. If you sparkle, you're not. No.
I know.
Twilight does not count.
I didn't. To be fair, I didn't mind the first movie, but then I couldn't do it after that. So I was like, nah.
I wanted to kill myself in the first movie, and I ended up breaking up with the girl that made me take her to that movie. I hated it.
I was gonna say that's the one thing I think I regret about growing up in the time I did. I keep saying I like the little era I grew up in, but I'm like, God damn it, why was I in high school when that was like the most popular fucking thing that everyone had to take their damn significant other to? Which did happen to me. So, I mean, whatever. Still a better vampire story than Twilight. See, I think it earns, I mean, just for me personally, it earns a lot of points again for being, one of the very first. Again, with its, like I said, just that, I think I said something to my mom about this, and she was like, I don't think I've heard of that. I'm like, no, trust me, if you saw it, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. Just if I just say it, and I think she didn't know which movie I was talking about. It's like, if I showed you a picture of them, you'd know. So, again, and like we said, kind of points for originality, because like they had nothing to go off of. We're just like, yeah, we're gonna throw this at the wall, and it's stuck. So it's up there. And I definitely want to give some points to Bela Lugosi for Dracula, because again, that one actually kind of creeped me out as a kid. Frankenstein didn't, which was weird. I just thought that was kind of fun. Let's see, and again, even just vampires, we try to go into that. There's a lot of vampires, man. There's you got like the Lost Boys, you got Interview with the Vampire. I'm not trying to count Twilight. I think of like what vampires are. I don't know. I would rank it pretty high for me, because again, you got to give points to the OG. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Tex, how about you? Where for you in all the Dracula-based movies? Where does this rank for you in all those? In the Dracula corner of the monster universe, the horror, whatever. Where does it rank for you?
I don't even think it's a top 5. This is not better than Lugosi. It's not better than Christopher Lee for the Hammer films. The British version of the Universal monsters. Just because, and this is something I was mentioning the other day, but I'm trying to not look through nostalgia glasses when I watch something. Just because something came before doesn't mean it's the best of whatever it may be. Something that came after can be better than its predecessor. I don't like how most people think, oh, well, it's just a ripoff. I don't like that attitude, and I'm trying to start a new trend here, but I don't think Nosferatu is a top 5 for me. I like how Underworld did their vampire lineage. There are so many. It's kind of, I don't think it's well, I don't know how it's took these days, but Dracula 2000 that came out in the early 2000s, where basically Dracula was Judas from the Bible and that whole thing. I like that better. Nosferatu, he gets points for originality, of course. Staying power, you can't take that away from him. But for me personally, if I'm putting in a vampire movie, I don't think I'm ever getting to this. It's, like I said, I've seen this a handful of times, but this is not something you can just put in and just casually watch. This is like a more of an art house experience kind of thing. And knowing what I know about how basically they just ripped off, Bram Stoker's novel, changed a few names and a couple little things, still got sued and had to, destroy the film. I can't even give them points for originality because they didn't create this stuff. They were just the first ones to put it on camera. You know what I'm saying? So I said it's good. It's it's not something I'm going to voluntarily watch, but it is what it is.
For me, I think there's a couple of different ways to answer the question. Number one is artistically. Artistically, I think you have to put it up at the top. And I think, Tex, you'd agree with that. You've already mentioned how so many of these shots could be.
Artistically, yes, I would agree. Looks-wise, yes, it's a stunning media. I would agree.
Yeah, story-wise, character actor-wise, it's hard for me to really say because, again, I've only seen a few silent films in my life, so I don't know that if I'd seen 20 or more, I would probably have a better idea as to how character work was done without dialogue. But I mean, could you imagine a silent film doing the diner scene in Heat? It's like the dialogue's important, but so from there, it's hard from there for staying power. I mean, it's got to be near the top. I mean, there's so many images, there's so many aspects of horror that came from this movie because it was one of the first. There's, like I said, the way they use shadow, it's something that they still use in horror today. Right. We'll sometimes see, Michael Myers, the shadow of Michael Myers coming up behind the unsuspecting co-ed. Right. Shots like that are still used today, and they were founded in movies like this. The unsuspecting guy who gets, sucked into the web of whatever murderous asshole is the antagonist of the movie. Starts in a movie like this. The Mary Sue character, the damsel in distress, kind of, honestly probably was started before this. That's something that goes back to probably the first films in Hollywood. But there's so many different ways to kind of look at it. If I'm just talking about as a pure movie, I think it ranks in the middle somewhere. I mean, who was it? I think it was Dr. Neck earlier said Dracula Dead and Loving It. Where I mean, if you're counting spoofs, then I think it's probably pretty solid in the middle of the pack. But I mean, taking it overall, I mean, it's got to be in the middle of the pack as a Dracula movie or a vampire movie. But artistically, it's got to be near the top. Artistically, I think it might be one of the best, still be one of the most important, maybe even one of the best films ever made. Artistically. Just speaking from a visual standpoint, there are so many things that jump out about this movie to me. So, I mean, overall, I would put it somewhere in the middle of the pack. But when you just focus on the artistry of it all, the auteur that Morneau was, I think it's got to be near the top. But I think overall, probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, do you guys kind of agree with that at least?
Well, yeah. I think the only reason this has any staying power whatsoever is because it's so visually striking. If it did not have the visuals, this would have been lost to time like every other silent film of that era. But that's why I would agree. Artistically, it's at the top. But other than that, it doesn't hold water. Just because, I mean, you've obviously, it's a product of its time. We can't judge it we can't compare Nosferatu to Dracula Untold with Luke Evans that came out a few years ago. We can't measure these two next to each other. So visually, yes, but I think that's the only reason why this thing has lasted as long as it has. But it is what it is.
Yeah, let's see. Let's move on let's give a little bit of a critique to specific scenes now. I'll go to you first, Tex. What was your favorite scene in the movie? I mean, there's probably one or two that will stick out, I think, to all of us. But I mean, what scene in the movie really jumped out as you as something that was really enjoyable to watch?
I have two. First would be the coffin loading scene that y'all talked about earlier. That scene is so funny to watch. It's like you don't expect to see this crazy looking guy running really fast, loading up coffins, and then he jumps in one, and then they're off to the races. I've always liked watching that scene. That's a scene that I would go back to like on YouTube and just look up randomly. And then of course the shadow scene. I think it's because of that scene right there. Like you said, Michael Myers, he casts the shadow. He's I wish we could play that whole scene on here because, my God, I've never seen a vampire that can kill you with a shadow grab to the heart like they do in this movie. Like that's points for originality that I will give, because it's, you don't expect that. You're like, it's kind of like I'm sure y'all seen Freddy versus Jason. When Jason when Freddy first brings Jason back to Springwood, and and then Freddy pops up, but the fear hasn't grown enough because he's in the dream with the kid, but he's in like ghost form or whatever. He doesn't have the power to kill from like that. I think that scene took it from this, and that for me would be my favorite save, just because they're so memorable, they're so visually striking that and maybe for whatever reason, when the people are just carrying their dead out of their the shot where you see all the houses and everything else, and you just see the people carrying the dead in the coffins, from the plague victims. That shot to me is just so, it's like something you would see in a history book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? What scene in this movie really jumps out as a favorite for you?
Well, yeah, obviously the shadow scene, because you get a specific, like, that's a shape, that's a very haunting image. And like he just said with Freddy Krueger, I'm like, remember the very first movie? The first time you see that dream, and there he is, like in the middle of that alleyway, there's his outline. I'm like, that's horrifying.
That's what I'm saying.
That shit,
I think if it wasn't for Nosferatu, Freddy Krueger wouldn't have what he has. You know what I mean?
Like I said, somebody's got to walk so you can run. I'm just saying, like that's
right.
You can't drop a line like "this is God" with your finger hands and not have this guy finger handing up the staircase. So that's a given. But like I said, I like the fact that they used that one. And again, I don't know if it was on purpose, but like that shot of the negative when he's in the carriage, I'm like, that just kind of took me back for a second. I'm like, what the shit? Why? What? Like I said, it gave it this weird, otherworldly kind of feel. Because like I said, it's almost like if I'm thinking too much, too artsy, I'm like, well, it's kind of like him crossing that threshold. Like I said, he's going from, where he's come from in his town to this. I don't know why. Look, if I saw that shot too, that is a cool shot when he looks up and he sees like on top of the hill, and I'm like, I don't know why you're so damn happy about this, man. Like, you saw that, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'll just turn around. So,
right.
And maybe I would say,
right here, I think.
Yeah, that like where it's we're all high up there on that fucking no. What about this is not a red flag, man? Like, I don't care how much money you're getting out of this. The hell. And I was saying,
if you put some snow in that scene, and at Christmas, the damn Grinch could live there, because that looks like the exact same place where he lives in his movie too.
That's some
like
that.
Nosferatu in Whoville. Make that movie Hollywood. That's the one I want to see, by God.
But yeah, any of those shots that, like I said, you kind of utilize that. It's almost like a fourth wall break. Like I said, when he's just sitting there staring, and like I know he's staring at like the wife or whatever. But it's like, it's just kind of jarring just to see him just like staring again. Like I said, from a haunt actor, and then you just stare at somebody like that, and you just don't break eye contact.
Yeah.
Like I said, that'll fuck with you for the rest of the night. I'm just saying. So those are used to pretty good effect. And like I said, maybe the negative shot, because that's just weird. And it's like, because it doesn't happen again. And you're like, again, sticks in your head. Like, why was that there? Spooky ghosts.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, I think it's easy to pick that shadow scene. It's such an iconic shot used in so many videos. It's been duplicated. They've tried to duplicate so many times. But a couple that I like, that entire sequence on the boat where the sailor kind of like breaks open the casket and sees him. That to me was a really cool reveal. And then of course the reveal where Huter finds him and throws off the lid of the casket and sees him laying there. That was a really cool reveal, because look, if you don't nail the reveal, like the big moment, if you don't nail that, your movie's going to fall a little bit flat. I mean, you could do a lot of other things right, but it's not going to be the same thing. That reveal, maybe it was the overacting on the part of the guy that played Heater. I don't know, but everybody overacted.
I like that shot. Like, he's in the background, kind of collapsed on the ground. You see him in the front, just still chilling in his coffin. I'm like, that's a cool shot, you know?
Yeah.
Just,
well, and you know, and also in the one in the ship. I mean, I couldn't find a good picture of it, but like when he opens up the ship, and then Orlok just kind of like comes straight up out of the thing, like in so many vampire movies. It wasn't like he just sat up like the Undertaker getting up after being laid out by somebody. He just like his whole body just comes straight up, like he was on a board that lifted him. I was like, that's pretty fucking wild. That's a killer shot. So those are the shots that really jumped out at me. But yeah, so many in this movie that are, like Tex said, they're just iconic. I mean, they kind of set the standard for what visually you want in the moment. You know what I mean? Also, one of the things I want to point out, and I put this in my little thing down at the bottom there, is that cool line of "Your wife has such a beautiful neck." I saw that. It came up on the screen, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, that would be. I mean, it's creepy now, and it's weird. Mm-hmm. It's kind of creepier because I'm reading on the screen. Because like if I heard somebody say that, like the guy who I knew was kind of shady to the guy who doesn't yet understand the situation he's in, he goes, "Oh, your wife has such a beautiful neck." It's like that would sound very creepy. But for some reason, as I was reading it, I was trying to like a little bit of the theater of the mind that you get from reading something in a book. It's like I'm kind of hearing it in this like weird voice in my head. And I'm like, that made it just a little. It made it a different kind of creepy. I don't know if it was more creepy, but it was a different kind of creepy.
I was gonna say this almost now at this point kind of borders on being like an analog horror, because that's what a lot of those rely on. Because like you're seeing it, and then like you just get dropped with like a line of text like that, no sound or maybe some music, but just it pops up, and then like he said, like you hear whatever voice you hear in your head reading it to yourself, and you're just like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Kind of just makes you feel uneasy. So.
Well, this is one of those. It's not a make your own adventure, but you have to. Whenever they don't give you the sound, and obviously there's versions that have the orchestra soundtrack to it. That's not the sound that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ambient noises of the wagons clanking on the brick road. People just talking in the background. The normal sounds that you would hear in a film. To enjoy this film, to absorb it properly, you almost have to be not inebriated, but like you kind of have to be high to really get into this movie, because you have so much imagination has to come out of your own brain to fill it out, to finish off the world. And it, like I said, it's kind of like you're watching another galaxy that, or another world that you're watching here. And it was 100 years ago. It basically was, but it's just, watching this takes some effort. It's not like watching a film from the 30s or something,
Well, they had that pesky thing called sound all of a sudden. People could talk. Put us all out of a job.
Came along.
Mm-hmm.
And those talks ruined everything, ruined so many careers.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
he's ruined the silent film star.
Well, like I said at the beginning of this, Rob Zombie deserves a lot of credit, because I mean he's had, I think, not Dracula, but I think Living Dead Girl. There's a few of his music videos that have Nosferatu clips in them. He had Nosferatu being the Munsters movie. I mean, he's used this imagery on a lot of his stuff, and I don't know if he's ever gotten credit for it. And I know I'm the Rob Zombie fanboy of our little shindig here, but credit where it's due. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
I mean, why do you think I put this line right here? Nosferatu's in SpongeBob, damn it. If you know what I'm talking about.
I did not know he was in SpongeBob.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's a reoccurring character in SpongeBob for some reason.
He's in SpongeBob. They did like a horror-ish kind of episode, and like there was a whole thing, the lights were flickering in the Krusty Krab, and like they figured out like, oh yeah, wait, this so-called hash slaying slasher was this guy that just wanted to apply for a job, you know, and he looks menacing in the dark, and he comes up to the restaurant, and they're like, "Oh, it's you." He's like, if that was you on the phone and you at the bus stop, who was flickering the lights? And it starts flickering. It literally just pops right over, and it's that damn shot of him, like when he comes to the door, and they like Photoshop his arm like flicking a light switch, and they're all like Nosferatu, and he just smiles, and that was the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Like, what? SpongeBob was on some weird
There was
shit,
about
like,
2 years. There was about 2 years where my kids were heavy into SpongeBob. So once they stopped caring, I was throwing everything away, and I didn't even mention SpongeBob ever existing because I didn't want to hear that laugh anymore because it made me want to go do bad things to people. So, you know, it is what it is. So I'm not a SpongeBob guy. It is what it is.
But let's get into a little bit of trivia now. And I mean, there's a surprise for a movie that's 100 years old and it's so scrutinized. There is a surprising lack of trivia. I mean, I found some good nuggets, but it was really odd that there wasn't more about this. But we've got some stuff we can get into. Even with several details altered, Bram Stoker's heirs sued over the adaptation, and a court ruling ordered all copies of the film to be destroyed. However, several prints of Nosferatu survived, and the film came to be regarded as one of the most influential masterpieces in cinema and of the horror genre.
Just like you can't get rid of the holiday special, Georgie. It's here to stay.
It's on YouTube.
It's science right there, damn it.
You mean you don't understand Wookiee? I'm actually fluent in Wookiee. I don't see what the problem is here. You don't understand the growls and the gnarls and the whatever?
No, I must have skipped class that day. I don't know.
I just count on Han Solo translating for me.
Yeah. Chewbacca. Well, we need you a nickname.
Nerf herder, you know. Yeah, like I said, obviously. No, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, it's funny because I was reading this. It's like they actually had all the original copies destroyed. But there were so many other copies that were made and sent around Europe. At that point, it had been in the United States, that there were some surviving copies. So every version of this movie is a copy of the master. The masters don't actually exist anymore. Yeah. They haven't for probably 100 years.
There isn't actually an original. And she'd never actually seen Nosferatu, and I was like, holy shit, dude. Sit down. Because I'm like, there's
Which version did y'all watch? Did y'all watch the black and white or the colorized version?
Black and white.
I watched the black and white one that was on Tubi, but I know it's on a couple different places that I could go watch. Well, I've seen it on a couple different places.
Tubi even had, I think it came up like 3 different versions that said Nosferatu, and one said like 100th anniversary. That's the one I watched. I think was the original, but the closest to like what we have. The other one, there was one that was colorized, and then one tripped me up because apparently it was the 1970s one, and I'm like, well, damn it. But there's so many different versions of this, and I was saying too, I'm like, some of them have, like I said, different scores. People have made their own scores for it and try to change it. And I'm like, that even changes your whole. That's what I'm saying. The music even carries. It's almost like a character itself because you're getting another medium to experience this film with. So that's the wild thing is like, you ever ask somebody like, what version of Nosferatu have you seen? Because honestly, that's a multiple choice question.
Right. Well, like I said, I asked that because, like, I think it plays better in black and white. Obviously, with the colorized version, you get more of like a bluish hue over some scenes, and it doesn't look bad, but I think the movie works better in just straight up black and white. I think that's the better version of it.
Yeah, somebody help me out here. There's lots of different cuts of this film, but mostly the different cuts all center around different music, right? It's not necessarily that there's scenes taken out or added or whatever.
Yeah.
It's mostly about the different music they're playing.
Yeah.
Scenes are basically the same. In some versions, they're longer than others, but there's not a difference enough to be like, okay, this is like the Snyder cut of Nosferatu. This is the blah, blah, blah cut. They're not different enough to be given a name distinction. But yes, you are correct. The the best way to differentiate is it completely quiet? Which orchestra is it? Is it a fan edit? That's mainly the versions that people talk about. If you've seen it, you've seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. But let's see. Another piece of trivia. Let me find a good picture. This doesn't work. Count Orlok is only seen blinking once on screen near the end of Act 1.
Yeah.
Max Schreck was known as being very much a method actor. I mean, they made a whole movie kind of based on his method acting. The one with Willem Dafoe where he played Orlok, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I can't remember the name of it. I know what you're talking about. I've seen it, but I can't remember the name of it. Well, even Max Schreck without the makeup, he's kind of an intense looking guy anyways. Like he's got a very distinctive look about him. Like he's just from the pictures, he's a very intense looking kind of fella. So, I mean, he was perfect to bring this Orlok, Dracula knockoff character to screen because, I mean, he does so well with it.
Yeah, but let's see. Believe it or not, this was actually selected by the Vatican in the art category of its list of 45 great films. All those great cinephiles over there at the Vatican actually had this in their art category of 45 great films.
Yeah, but they just sure didn't like that movie, The Exorcist.
Now, what did the guys over at Pet Boys, what's their top 45? Because, they're film critics too, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to church to tell me which movies are good. Tell me about, Bible. You know what I mean? Just say it. I'm not going to my proctologist to get a haircut. No, I'm just, one of those things. So.
Yeah, that'd be a awkward day.
I also wonder that this piece of trivia I found didn't say exactly when, but all it says is selected by the Vatican in the art category of its list of 45 great films. I wonder exactly when they decided to say, "Oh yeah, this was it 1940 that they decided this?
Right.
1970." I'm kind of wondering which pope was it, because I would imagine
it wasn't 1923. It wasn't a year after. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. But
was this the Nazi pope era? What were we going with here?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I kind of wonder, was it Pope John Paul? I mean, he seemed like he was a pretty swinging cat. He seemed like he was kind of into the Western stuff a little bit. I mean, he was around for a while too. So
I wonder if the reason why they picked this, I'm sure y'all have heard this before, but a lot of criticism against, like whenever this film had came out, obviously, racism against Jewish people was kind of a big thing at the time, which technically it always is. But a lot of people had complained, like the Orlok character, he was a Jewish stereotype with the nose and like all of the kind of like the heavy looks about him. And, this being a Germanic film, obviously we know what would happen a little bit later down the road. So a lot of people, right. Yeah. A lot of people had said, like, that the whole plague of the Jewish thing and everything else. So I'm not going down that road or anything, but, I'm just bringing up movie history, people. But, that was one of the negatives against this. I don't know if that's in your trivia or not, but that, the vampire thing was kind of a, stereotype, against the Germanic folks. You know what I mean?
You got to think about when this was coming out and what was going on in the world. Yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
World War I and kind of in the lead up to the Browns.
This is leading up to two.
Yeah,
in Europe at least. Yeah.
So, and it's a German film, so it's entirely possible.
That's what I'm saying. That's what because like I said, the nose, the features that Orlok has, who made it. This was a criticism. I don't think it's I don't believe in it. I don't think they purposely did that to, hate anybody. I just think that's the design that they happen to go with. But I could kind of see where they're coming from at points, but I don't think it's a thing. You know what I mean? So
say you're not gonna sit here and tell me Nosferatu to Hitler is what Exorcist 3 is to Jeffrey Dahmer. Like
right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like Frank touched on earlier, there's a lot of social commentary in this that works. I mean, for the time period that it came from. I mean, you can judge what's going on in the world by what horror is doing. I mean, whatever's going on in the world, I mean, Texas Chainsaw was a result of Vietnam with the whole hippie generation and everything else. That's where that came from. I mean, there's so many films that are representative of it, and horror really seems to be at the forefront. Why, I don't know. I've never figured that out. I guess it's
hell of a way to
good method to get it out. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to have an outlet, though. You know what I mean? It's something that
Right.
horror, because horror can push that boundary better than, and not like you couldn't make a dramatic movie about something like that, but when you see it and you kind of see the undertones of, you know, what it's trying to say with something like horror, like I said, that's about pushing the bounds and kind of making people open their eyes a little bit, like, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. Like, as much as Romero even said, like, no, he didn't do it on purpose, but like, you think of Night of the Living Dead from, was that 68? The lead character
69,
is African American.
Yeah, one of the.
You know what I mean? He's
I don't buy
the most capable and smartest character. I'm like, no, you had something there that he was the only one who seemed to know what the hell was even going on or like what to do.
See,
so
I don't think that's a criticism about racism against black folks. I think that's more of a criticism of how stupid everybody was as a whole. I don't, like I said, Dwayne Jones just happened to apply for that role. I've never looked at Night of the Living Dead, the original, as like a pro-black, anti-racism film. I think that's the world has gone crazy. You know what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying, again, the time period it was in, it was kind of like, whoa, that's insane. That's your lead actor.
No, I get it. I get it. I don't know.
I don't know, because I'm just saying a bunch of those yeehaw cops and good old boys will roll up on that house, and I'm like, you didn't see the gun in his hand? Come on.
Well,
I don't know about
even
that
the parents in the basement, when they see their little girl laying on the table, you know she's dead. She's not gonna get better, and they refuse to even bury her or do anything.
I know she's dead.
Right. This is what I'm saying. So like I said, I don't think it's an anti-yeehaw cowboy thing. I think it's the world's gone to hell and nobody cares. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just saying it seemed like there might have been a message there, and I mean Romero's always like, no, he's like, I picked the best guy for the role, and he did it. He killed it. And I was like, yeah, fair, but I
think he's telling the truth when he did that. I don't think that character was written as black. It just happened to be. But,
he wasn't trying to make like a statement. It's just like it happened that way. But it's still cool, as I'm saying. It's a good movie.
Yeah. No, it works. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
But, you know, Tex, you were saying how this movie is not really scary at all. Let's see. Sweden disagreed with you. The movie was actually banned in Sweden.
Well, what do they know? Come on, they're Swedish.
It was banned in Sweden due to excessive horror. The ban was finally lifted in 1972.
Whew. Right before the new one came out.
Okay. And the example I'm about to use is
some of those other horror movies.
The example I'm about to use is not from Sweden, but from the UK. And I'm sure y'all have heard of the film Nasties list. They had 72 films on this that were not allowed to be played. And up until like 2001, Texas Chainsaw 74 was on that list.
Yep.
So come on. Are we really going to listen to Europe about anything when it comes to film criticism? These people don't know what's good. Don't listen to them people. Like, horror is better in America. We've made it the best, by God. God bless America. You know.
Also,
vote me for president.
Their censorship is just insane. I don't know how to do it. Well, see, that's why, like, I think I asked you before, Tex. You ever seen the movie High Tension? It's a French horror film.
Yeah.
That's why you should leave it to us. I was like, maybe don't do that again, okay? Please.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if you're not American, you can't make a horror film. But I'm like, that was kind of like, wow,
J horror.
bad.
Yeah. J-horror sucks. We've seen what they do in Serbia when they make a horror film. They should never be allowed to do anything ever again for their filth. So, America does it right. Sweden don't know what they're talking about. Bunch of idiots.
Well,
so
again, like the Ring and the Grudge, though, the original ones, those are pretty fucking terrifying. Koreans know how to do horror really well.
I'm not into that. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. It's just a taste thing. But, to each their own. It is what it is.
I always thought it was interesting when countries ban movies for one reason or another. I just watched a documentary not too long ago called Forbidden Orange. I don't know if you guys have seen it or not. It's about how It's about how the movie Clockwork Orange was banned in Spain because there was a lot of political unrest at the time when the movie came out in the 70s, and stuff with their royal family and their presidents and so on and so on. And they actually didn't lift the ban until I want to say right around the year 2000.
Wow.
Not to say that the movie wasn't seen in Spain at all, but it's like they wouldn't allow it to be shown in theaters or anything for several years, for a couple of decades. And I always
fuck that movie.
Yeah. Now this documentary, while interesting, was more about the political strife and everything that was going on in Spain at the time, and didn't really talk a whole lot about the movie itself. But it was an interesting enough documentary. I forget where I watched it. I think it may have been on Tubi that I watched it. But yeah, it's always these European countries, some of the Asian countries, they're always banning movies for one dumb reason or the next. But moving on, after 85 years at this time, probably it's been 101 years now, virtually all of the exteriors are left intact in the cities of Weimar and Lübeck in Germany, where the movie was filmed.
That's awesome.
They built things to last back then, bro.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even if
they're made out of stone castles, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And things can happen, natural disasters can happen, shit like that. So I'm like, it's kind of nice that at least allegedly now it's still there. That's kind of insane to me. You know what I mean? You can just walk and be like, hey, yeah, that's Count Orlok is up there just chilling in his little casket. Wild.
Movie production sites are like a big tourism thing. I mean, there's plenty of YouTube channels with people that go to stuff like that. And I've never seen one person actually, and it's not like there's not plenty of places around Europe as a whole. I mean, to say nothing about, Romania and Germany and places like that. But I mean, all over Europe, there's so many places where so many movies have been filmed that I'm really surprised that Europe is not one of these places that people have kind of targeted to go to make some content that is not, because it's easy to go to Arizona and Texas and see where they film the Westerns. It's easy to go to LA where they film some of the scenes for Terminator. It's easy to go to those things. But films like this, which are very iconic films, nobody is going to Germany to go see the castle where Orlok was loading the coffins onto the carriage, and that's really sad, because some of these places, I mean, like, they've been there not even just for 100 years. I mean, some of these places have been there for 300-400 years. Yeah. So these places are very, very interesting, and one of the things that Morneau did in this movie was he tried to use the architecture of the surrounding stuff to frame Orlok and some of the other characters, especially Orlok, because they wanted him to be kind of imposing. So he used a lot of those like arched door frames and stuff to make him appear taller than what he really is. It's kind of a visual trick, as it were. And he didn't always have some of the other characters coming through those doors. He had them coming through very normal doors because he wanted Orlok to look taller. So it's just just the way that he used all those great architectural ways of doing things that we haven't seen anybody use for several hundred years was really interesting. But let's see, this film, the events of the film actually takes place in 1838.
I was gonna say, when was this movie? Yeah, I'm like, it was 1800s, right? Yeah.
The movie is based in 1838. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for all the, go ahead, Dix.
Well, I was just thinking, the one from the 70s, it was basically a shot-for-shot remake, right? I think it was.
I've seen Werner Herzog's movie, to be honest.
I think it's been a while since I've seen it. I think it's set in the same time period as well. I believe it is. I'm not for sure. I'd have to go back and watch it again. Dang it.
Nope, Astros just scored.
Yeah, we are, for the ones that care, the top of the fourth. Houston Astros have 4, and the mighty Texas Rangers have 3. But it's all good. We got a lot of baseball left to play, folks. Nothing to fear. We trust in Bochy. That's all I know. So it's all good.
Yeah, there was actually another version of the film re-released in the late 1990s that replaced the film's score with the music of metal band Typo Negative. This film was actually introduced by the late David Carradine.
Is this that weird synthwave one I saw? Because there was one that was like synthwave Nosferatu. It's Nosferatu, but with like 80s synth music or some shit. And I was like, now that would be a fucking fun time. They have like different filters over the movie too, and I'm like, let's see that.
That's something that you got to do, like shrooms or acid before.
I was gonna say, text like you said, like you want to get high and watch a movie, watch that shit. That'll probably fucking blow your mind. That one might get a little scary for you after having a bad.
Drop some LSD and then go watch, Typo Negative Nosferatu. That's a fun night right there, buddy.
Oh man.
Boy, that would be a trip, literally and figuratively. Let's see. Contrary to popular belief, the vampire's name is Orlok and not Nosferatu. Nosferatu is an archaic Romanian word for vampire. The origin of the word is unknown.
Yeah, because like when he reads that little thing in his room, it says like Nosferatu, and it starts to kind of explain, or not really explain, but like it's not him. Yeah, I understand that. That's really kind of funny. That's not really what his name is. Because that title card came up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot his name is Count Orlok." Whoops.
Well, and like I said earlier, there are you can go find it online. There are titles credit scenes from certain cuts of the film that have Dracula, Renfield, all of the names from Stoker's book that were actually in there at one point. But, like I said, different versions or, you can go find. But, I mean, obviously his name is Orlok, but, I mean, it's Nosferatu. I mean, yeah, that may not be what he's called, but that's what he's known by the best because it's the title of the freaking movie. So get over yourselves, you bunch of weirdos.
He said the thing in the movie.
Yeah. Let's see. Another interesting thing I found is the bizarre-looking buildings were not special effects or something that were built specifically for the film. Specifically talking about the ones that Orlok moves into when he moves from one place to another. Orlok's new home was actually a set of warehouses. The buildings have been preserved and still exist today in 2023, more than 100 years after the film.
Okay, that's cool.
That would be cool to go to and do a cosplay photo shoot kind of thing. I'm sure 1,000 people have done it by now. Yeah, but do the whole bald cap if you have hair, the robe thing, do the whole thing. And like I said, I'm sure it's been done to death, but that would be really cool to go do.
It would be wild. Let's see. In addition to his facial structure, let me find the In addition to his facial structure, Max Schreck was cast because he stood well over 6 feet tall, which was unusual 100 years ago. This allowed him to tower over the other characters and create a sense of domination.
I didn't realize it was that rare to be over 6 foot 100 years ago. That's kind of interesting.
Well, how long did you live, too? I mean, shit. You know what I mean?
Well, I know that the San Francisco Giants got their name because when they were in New York back in the day, there was one year where the Giants players were all abnormally tall. I think all of them were over 6 feet, where most guys were like 5'8", 5'9". And there was one year where they had a bunch of players that were over 6 feet tall, so they just kind of jokingly called them the Giants, and that's where the Giants name came from. I think from both the baseball and the football team.
And that's also why if you hear sportscasters say the New York Football Giants, that's where that name comes from as well. But I would imagine if you were over 6 foot tall 100 years ago, they probably drawn and quartered you for being some kind of giant or monster or something. Anyways, in the courtyard. So,
in the damn circus,
I'd be screwed.
You'd be a sideshow.
I'm 6'5". I would have been at the freak show or something. I'm like, get this mongoloid out of here. He don't fit. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good thing I wasn't around back then, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? So,
I make a lot of good money on the table though, just being a freak. Fuck it.
right. I'd be over there, stepping on watermelons for a nickel at a time or something.
That's still pretty
It
good
is what
money
it
for
is.
fucking that time, probably. Yeah.
Let's see. There's a lot of different things about vampires that we've come accustomed to over the years. The concept in popular culture that sunlight is lethal to vampires is based on this film, which depicted such a death for the very first time in film history. F.W. Murnau knew that he would be sued for borrowing heavily from Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula without permission, so he changed the ending in order that he could say that this film and Dracula were not exactly the same. I don't know, Jeremy, what's worse, sunlight killing the vampires or vampires glistening in the sunlight?
I'd rather them burn in the sunlight. All right, that's
at least Orlok doesn't care about your feelings, and he must have you. So he wins automatically.
I don't know, man. He saw that picture in that locket, and he was like, "Wow, she got a nice neck."
Yeah, but he was looking lustfully. Edward or whatever that weirdo's name was, he was all up in his feelings and wanted to write poetry and hold hands together. Different situation.
You're telling me that like there is a romance aspect to vampires, or it's a romanticized thing, or
of course,
it starts getting sexual because that's kind of their thing.
Well, there's a reason why Dracula has like 5 brides at a time, because the dude's horny. Like he likes to throw down. You know what I mean? He's one woman is not enough for his taste. So
sucking back a few necks with the boys this weekend. You know what I mean? So a long weekend.
Well, I mean, the whole sunlight thing was not the only difference, though. He doesn't make other vampires. I said this earlier. He doesn't make other vampires. He doesn't transform into a bat or smoke or whatever. He's kind of like he's more of a vampire with a Y instead of an I vampire. You know what I mean? He's kind of more of he's like a cousin. He's not the main family tree, I would say. So
also in that,
and the only reason that's because he was trying not to get sued, but it is what it is.
In that scene where he finally gets a hold of his wife's neck, there was that mirror right there, and he just turns to look at the sun. I'm like, he has a reflection. So vampires will have reflections. I know that's probably just a movie, but I'm like, but he had a reflection. So
there's enough little differences that they tried to artistic license argument, but they still lost the lawsuit. So life sucks.
True. Let's see. One more piece of trivia that I found interesting. Count Orlok, played by Max Schreck, does not appear until 21 minutes into the film. Furthermore, the character of Count Orlok is only seen on screen for a bit less than 9 minutes in total throughout the whole film. We've talked recently about how Hannibal Lecter was only in Silence of the Lambs for like 20-something minutes. There's other films we've talked about recently where there's just not. Pennywise is not in the film. Was not in the miniseries all that much. Where your imagination is left to do most of the work. I mean, I don't know, Tex. What did you think about the idea of only having one of the most iconic people and characters in film, at least one of the most iconic looks, only in the movie for 9 minutes?
If I were making a movie with a villainous monster, whether it's Michael Myers, Leatherface, or Count Orlok, I'm going to put as much of my monster in there as possible. Now, the reason why he may not have been in there, much like you see with, I'll go back to like a lot of the 80s B movies. There's a lot of 80s B films where you don't get much of the creature or the monster because most of them didn't have the budget enough to keep redoing the monster makeup over and over again or whatever it may be. So, much like with Bruce the Shark in Jaws, they didn't show him to the end because the thing didn't freaking work. I mean, so, you got to get creative. So, it's like I said, to me, it's not how many minutes and seconds your monster is in there. It's how is it done effectively. And this, it's done effectively because, yes, you don't get much Count Orlok, but when he's on the screen, it's memorable. It's like, oh my God. Like with the original, I think there's a lot of time, and we probably needed a little more Pennywise, but it is what it is.
Well, you definitely get that a lot more in the Andy Muschietti films. There's a lot more of Pennywise.
Right.
So
right, because that's the guy that, if you put the guy's face on your poster, he needs to be in your movie. There's a reason why they brought Michael Myers back, because Halloween 3 did not have Michael Myers in it. So the next 3 films were Curse, Revenge, and Return. So you sell your monster if that's what you're doing. So I got a feeling in this new Nosferatu, you're probably going to get more than just a few minutes if I had to bet. So we'll see.
I would imagine it would be a whole lot, because I think in part you kind of have to. You're trying to weigh it against what you want your movie to be. So it's like sometimes not knowing what the villain or the bad guy or the monster looks like
mystery
adds to that sense of dread. I mean, it's like Cloverfield. You don't really get you get a couple of like momentary looks at the monster, but you don't get a good look at him until almost the very end of the movie. And that's one of the things that makes it. Same thing with Jaws. It's like, it's a shark. I mean, anybody who could look at an encyclopedia back in the 70s when the movie came out could see a picture of a great white shark. But the fact that you don't see it, there's just more buildup for when you do finally get it. You get that pop when you're in the theater about when the monster finally shows up on screen and you get a good look at him.
Well, you don't even see you don't see Mrs. Voorhees till the fucking last couple minutes of the movie either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's a different kind of. That film is a whodunit though. That's a different kind of thing. Like if you're doing a movie
until it's until it's time, you got to have that build up and that effect. You want it to hit.
Well, that approach that you're talking about, Frank, only works in the first one. It was fine in the first Nosferatu or in the first in the first Friday the 13th, like Jeremy's talking about. But once we've had it once, we know who the villain is. We know who the bad guy is. Don't wait till the end to show him. That was, we talked about this when we did Exorcist Believer review, the whole Michael Myers thing with Halloween Ends. You barely get Michael Myers in that movie, and half the time when you see his mask, it's not him wearing it. When you're coming to the monster movie, you're coming for the monster. When you watch old school Frankenstein, the second that he's born, he is in almost every frame of that movie, which is what's so good about it. But, it's just different approaches. It's, what your taste is, but, it's just one of those things.
Like I said, it all depends on the movie too. It's like, because when you're talking about like a Freddy or a Mike Myers, it's like the murders are a big part of what pushes the movie. So you have to show him murdering people. You can't wait till the very end. Yeah, the first kill, you might be able to get away with like just seeing an arm raise up and come down with a machete or just see the shadow. But you got to kind of get to the real visuals pretty quickly when you're talking about 3 or 4 significant deaths over the course of the movie. But in this one, it's like stuff like this or stuff like Cloverfield, or maybe depending on how your movie's put together, you can get away with like dragging that mystery out a little bit. Again, it depends. Like for a straight up slasher, it probably wouldn't work. But for something like this, which is more of a artist kind of thing, what do they refer to it as? Expressionist horror. For something like that, it's supposed to be a little more artsy. You could probably get away with it a little easier. But I do believe that you're probably going to see a lot more than of Count Orlok in this film that's going to be coming up soon.
There is a middle ground though. Like, look at a film like The Strangers. When you first see the people in the masks, they're in shadow, or like you see the baghead just for a couple seconds, you get the front of it in the background. You can build to it. You can still go suspensefully like a lot of movies do. You don't have to just here's Jason Voorhees. You can do it creatively. But, I would rather have more monster than not, because if you don't, you're really relying on, you better have a solid cast to carry that movie before your monster comes out. That's why a movie like Jaws works so well, is because Spielberg cast that movie perfectly. Even when you don't see the shark, you're still invested in the story with the mayor and everything else. But, just one of those things.
Yeah, but it seems like a good time to start wrapping things up. But I don't know. I'll go to you first, Jeremy. What are your final thoughts on the 1922 film Nosferatu?
It's definitely, definitely worth a watch. I mean, again, you're talking about early Hollywood here, and just movies in general, and it's wild to see something like this that has stood this test of time well over 100 years now. So, just, and I think, like we say on this channel, like, go back and watch older stuff, like go back and see, stuff that came before, because you can still enjoy it. You can still find something about it you like. Like I said, I'm just a fucking nerd for the the cinematography, and I just like the way some of the things are shot, and I can look at it and think of, like, man, how do you do that? Or how to, you can do this. You could probably easily do this movie today. So any of that stuff they did then. But I'm like, the fact that they did make something like this in that time, it deserves a watch. And whichever, at least watch, I guess, try to watch this version that we watched, the black and white one first, and then you can go crazy with your 80s synth and typo negative and colorize, whatever the hell you want to do. But you kind of appreciate it from different angles, and that's kind of the fun thing about it. So yeah, it's a classic character and some pretty classic horror. Like I said, I unironically watch Night of the Living Dead constantly because I just love that old. I just love that. Like, I wanted to watch the Universal monsters again after seeing this. I'm like, yeah, it got me in a mood. So if it does that for you.
Yeah, Tex, how about you? What are your final thoughts on Nosferatu?
The monster movies that came in the decades after need to thank this movie, because if it wasn't for this one, they would have never got made. You can't argue. You can argue whether you like this movie or not, but you cannot argue the staying power of what this film is. And it's so, I mean, this is the most art house horror movie I've ever seen, even beyond the stuff that A24 and all those others, the elevated horror nonsense has put out over the decades. Midsommar, Hereditary, all of those art house kind of, Babadook would be another one, which I'm not a fan of Babadook, but it is what it is. But no, Nosferatu is visually stunning. It's the granddaddy, and it's just, I think you need to watch it once, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I would say for me, like I said, there's an artistry in this movie that kind of transcends any genre, really. There's a reason why, film classes and stuff like that at colleges will go to this movie a lot about how great shots are done, how to make something look brilliant. Then again, not just the way they frame shots, but also just kind of the locations that they were in. I mean, they're in the stuff that even at the time this movie was made was several hundred years old and kind of had a mystique and aura all its own. But yeah, it does kind of set the stage for so many of the films that would come in the decades after, especially the monster movies that we would get all through the 40s and the 50s and into the 60s. I mean, this was kind of step one for all those great movies, the stuff that we get from Bela Lugosi and guys like that. So yeah, I think it's an interesting movie to watch. It's interesting to go back and do the silent film thing, because how many people out there have even seen a silent film? I mean, most of the people that would watch silent films on the regular have been dead for 30 years. I mean, so I mean, go out and just get this as an experience, because it is really interesting. Jeremy said that we talk a lot about going back and watching older stuff to try to figure out what the building blocks were in entertainment that gave us eventually what we have now. This is one of the movies that you really should go back and watch and kind of get a hint as to how it affected filmmaking for a century afterwards. You know what I mean? What were you going to say, Tex?
Oh, no, I was just going to say quickly. Like I said, this is not, when you watch this, don't watch it like you watch a regular film. Think of this as put yourself in the mindset of you're about to intake a artistic experience that it's something out of time. Like, it's very dated, but it feels kind of timeless at the same time, which is one of the magical things that it does. But just keep that in mind when you watch it. know what I mean?
I agree. The artistic value of this cannot be understated at all. But let's see. That's where we're going to wrap things up. Thanks to my amazing co-host for coming to hang out with me. I very much appreciate it. I was hoping to have Cora on here for this one because she was talking about wanting to talk about this movie, but she's not too into the horror stuff. But we're looking forward to having her back on here a lot more often come November when we do some other stuff. But to my hetero life mate Jeremy, where can the folks at home find you, my friend?
Well, I'm not lying in state in my coffin in a creepy house on the hill, haunted hill. I don't know.
House on Haunted Hill.
Hey, that'd be a fun one to do, man. You got to do some Vincent Price. Vincent
Price is amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, when I'm not doing that, I'm here on Thursdays, Tuesdays. Yeah, because new movies come out. That's what Tuesday slots for, and then Thursdays that's the flagship. So that's why I'm yes, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. That's where I'm usually at, and oh crap, I just closed my whole thing out. Whoopsie. See, I'm a terrible. Oh god, I'm fucking everything up. I'm a terrible content creator, as you can tell. That's where I was leaning into. There we go, I got it back. But I've got a Twitch, I got YouTube. I do pop in and out of Brooding Gamers stuff. His stuff's down there too. Like I said, if you like Haunted Mansion, if you like Jurassic Park and things of that nature, I do pop in there from time to time. It's spooky season, so that's what I'm doing, obviously, right now. And it's almost over, and it's making me sad. There's only 2 weekends left. But that just means I got a whole nother year to look forward to it.
And to my man, the shape for the Lone Star State, my man Tex. What do you got going on, sir?
Oh, not much. Hanging out here when we do stuff. Watching horror films and sports overload right now between football and baseball, and my head's about to explode trying to keep up with everything. But hey, I'm a sports fan. I can't help myself. But I did find a movie that if you haven't seen this movie, y'all need to go watch it. It's called Spree, Spree. It's from 2020. It stars Joe Carey, Steve from Stranger Things. David Arquette has a minor role in it. Okay, it's basically, I just found this film and I watched it yesterday or last night. It's a mix. If I had to describe this, it's basically a mix of Joker, American Psycho, and Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. If you can imagine throwing all three of those films into one, this is what you have. Basically, it's a setup of a guy that it takes place modern day. He's a streamer. He's not really getting the views. He wants to be like an influencer. He wants to be a celebrity. He wants to do all the things. He lives in Southern California. He wants to be famous, and he's a Uber driver, but it's Spree in the movie. I won't spoil anything. It's got a very interesting social commentary about fame and social medias. It's got a few Saturday Night Live cast members in it as well. If you can get through the first part, the end is really cool. It's got some fun kills in it, some creative new kills that I haven't seen done. So I believe it's on crap, I didn't write down where I watched it on. Either way, like I said, just type in Spree and go find this movie. I highly recommend it. It was an interesting watch. It's not Steve from Stranger Things is all I'll say. He gets a little crazy in this one, so go check it out.
Yeah, real quick before we get out of here, I do want to say rest in peace to Burt Young. I don't know if you guys saw that he died, the guy that played Paulie in the Rocky movies.
I did not see that.
Yeah, I've been seeing him and stuff forever. I was actually kind of bummed that he was still kicking, so I was kind of bummed that he wasn't playing some kind of a small role in the Creed films. But whatever, they decided to kill his character off.
He wasn't in the first Creed. I don't remember.
He wasn't in any of the Creed movies. In the Creed movies, it alludes to the fact that his character has died. But unfortunately, Burt Young did pass away. I got that notification I think yesterday afternoon. But yeah, very, very sad. I've seen him in everything from MASH and other TV shows to Back to School. He played the gruff limo driver for the Thornton Mellon character, Rodney Dangerfield's character. he basically played the same character in everything, whether it was a comedy or a drama, and he was absolutely amazing in all of them. But yeah, rest in peace to Burt Young. Yeah, a lot of celebrities going down lately. I mean, Suzanne Summers passed away the other day. Very sad for those of you who, in my age group, who grew up watching Three's Company and Syndication, and for the 90s kids like Jeremy who watched her on Step by Step. Yeah, definitely very sad. That a day before her 67th birthday. That's bad time.
Damn.
But yeah, it's been another tough year for our elderly movie stars. You know what I mean? But I want to thank all of you who voted in the poll. It looks like out of 9 votes, 89% of you said that you thought Nosferatu was awesome. 11% of you said meh, and apparently Casey wasn't watching tonight because nobody voted for straight poop. So that's just how we know. Well, that and Casey wasn't in here talking about how we suck and he's going to start another channel and blah 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 whatever. Casey must have been busy.
Hey, no,
busy.
He said Monday. Here, okay. Monday. Whenever I was over there with Alex and Nick, he wanted to jump on my gig and watch all the messed up horror films. So I'm waiting. I mean, I'll welcome him into the fold if that's what he wants to do. I just don't think he's got the stomach or the stones for it. You know what I mean?
Anything scarier than gargoyles, he wouldn't be able to handle.
Well, like I said, he didn't sit here and watch Saw for 2 fucking months straight, and then the whole thing with you. So you're welcome.
I will set the bar at Bloodsucking Freaks. If he can sit there and review Bloodsucking Freaks without never talking to me again or vomiting, then maybe we'll see. But we'll figure it out. It's all good. So.
Yeah, as for me, you'll find me along with the crew back here on Tuesday breaking down Hellraiser, the one we were supposed to do last week. But we readjusted the schedule a little bit. We can't not talk about this movie. For one, we all watched it. For two, it is kind of one of the iconic horror classics. I mean, Pinhead he's on the Mount Rushmore of horror icons. So we're gonna be talking about that on Tuesday, and then of course Wednesday we'll be back. I had to miss last week because of work and stuff, but we'll be back to talk about what will eventually be week 6 in the NFL. So me and Tex and Marcus will be back here to give you guys our football talk, and then after that I forget what the hell we're doing. Terrifier is going to be up next.
That's the one I'm looking for.
That. So Terrifier. Oh, we just lost Tex. Oh, there you go. He's back now.
He's back.
Okay.
Sorry, apparently I've got bad weather. My screen just cut out from it. But no, I said I can't wait for Terrifier. I'm going to nerd out on that one.
Yeah, I'm probably going to watch that this weekend. I haven't seen any of the Terrifier movies yet, so I'm probably going to sit and watch it this weekend. And
I need to see 2. I've seen 1.
Yeah. I know, Frank, I know you're limited for time, but I would implore you, first watch The Ninth Circle. It's a short on YouTube. It's about 20 minutes. Then you need to watch All Hallows Eve, free on Tubi. That's where you'll see art really kind of form. Then Terrifiers 1 and Terrifiers 2. If you want to get the full Arthur Clan experience, time permitting, that's what I would recommend. So, keep that in mind.
Yeah, I knew that Terrifier wasn't the first movie that he was in.
Yeah.
So I knew that, but I was like, I've been wanting to try to get to the beginning of the Art the Clown thing because I think he's a pretty cool looking character, if nothing else. But I will be getting my first exposure to Terrifier here soon. My youngest son loves the movies. He thinks they're hilarious. He watches them on the regular. He thinks they're funny as shit. So he's obviously.
I can't wait to talk about it.
He's obviously twisted just like Tex is.
That just means he's awesome. That's all that is. So he's good people.
Awesome. he is good people. But thanks a lot for coming to hang out. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Starring the great Pinhead. But we'll see you then. Until next time. Adios.
There's your vampire ad. Make it happen, Stranger Things.
Should we just be silent? Should we just be quiet and not say anything for the outro since they didn't say anything?
Nah.
We like the talkies here, damn it.
Dead air.